short and sweet, like my wife. um, I'm gonna touch on something briefly that I had in private conversation with um, some online friends, a couple of my moderators. And, we touched on some thoughts on women and dating and, certain expectations people have depending on the type of person they date, um, where they're from, nationality or ethnicity, all that sorts of stuff. So we touched on this a few days ago. And, I, for my part, stuck with some rather red pill sort of um and I don't even like saying red pill anymore. I think red pill just in a lot of in many regards is just common sense type stuff. But it we touched on these things, and I'm gonna speak about them here. Maybe they will be able to jump on ship and uh you know talk about it here. If not, that's fine. Let me see what this does. Oh, okay. Sorry, I just wanted to see what it did. So, okay, cool. Apparently, I can turn the camera on and off while still live streaming, so I can do this. So, anyway, okay, that's a new feature I haven't seen before. But anyway, so if you didn't see the title is um, "Average Women Still Think They Deserve More." And again, this is based on a conversation I was having like 2 days ago, um, as well as some stuff talked about with friends and watched. There was a long form video I wanted to release, but the file was too large, and I don't have the proper editing software to chop it up the way I wanted it, so that I could make it palatable for viewing. So I just ended up deleting it, but I'll probably touch on that subject again and just show it in a shorter uh, form. What's up, Asia? So and I know this is gonna rub a few people the wrong way, but yeah, like I said, the title of this video is "Average Women Still Think They Deserve More," and this isn't and this isn't coming at any specific group of women. This is just westernized women in general, because the woman I was talking to wasn't even American. Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. So, um, yes, I'm doing well. Um, so yeah, so we were talking about expectations and how a lot of guys have the who are mobile, who have the ability to travel, are flying towards the east where there's more traditional culture. And I was like, look, the direction of men traveling for more desirable women is a unidirectional arrow. It's not bidirectional arrows, one going east, one going west. So Eastern men aren't coming west. Eastern men are staying put, and Western men are going east because that's where they're flying more traditional culture. Which, yes, traditional can be an ambiguous word, but in the sense that women who are still marriage minded. So in that regards, so we talked about it, and one of the things we talked about, I'm not. But by the way, if you're saying something goofy, I'm not going to respond to it because I don't respond to gay stuff. So the Biden era is gone. I'm not going to pretend to even like that to even think that's tolerable. Sorry. If you on that if you on that Fanuc stuff, go somewhere else with it. So anyway, or you'll just get kicked out the chat. But any case, or you just keep those thoughts to yourself. One of them. But in any case, guys, so we were talking about I I have my I have my particular preferences, and there's a different. And one of the things that came out that private conversation a few days ago is that there's a distinction between preferences and fetishes, right? Preference is just okay. You like this type of woman. You like this type of man. Fetish is something that's aberrant, and I had to explain that, like, you know, to one of my friends who I think she was being delusional, and I told her as much. Like, she was saying, 50-year-old women are in their sexual prime. I'm like, no, the hell they aren't. I was like, you're literally on grandmother status. Like, no, like, are there men who will seek out such women? Yes, but that's a fetish. That's not a sexual preference because by and large, throughout the history of humanity, men have not sought out elderly women as for sexual relations for long-term relationships. Will they smash? Sure, but that's a lot of women don't get the fact that just because a man will smash does not make them desirable. Men will just literally smash anything. Like a guy, like a guy in a guy out in the middle of the desert will fuck a sheep, literally, literally. That doesn't mean that there is a preference for sheep among men. So, and she was like, well, I know a lot of women who would disagree. I was like, it doesn't matter if they disagree, they're delusional. I was like, there's no, I was like, outside of men who have a gilf fetish, outside of those men who have a gilf fetish, there's not, by and large, men are not clamoring for elderly women. And I'm sorry, women in their 50s are elderly. And, I kept it fair. I had to flip it over to men too, because then, I told them, my preference for a certain group of women, particularly East Asian women. And she was like, well, they're all gold diggers. I'm like, no, they're not. And then she mentioned, well, my father married a woman. She's, and she's a gold digger, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yes, but bear in mind, your father is an elderly man. No, no nubile woman is clamoring for an elderly man. No one says, I want what's the guy who's to make the popcorn, the microwave popcorn everyone eats, the old white guy with the spectacles. No one want no 22-year-old woman's like, I sure want to get with him. No, nor do they want to get with some fat old dude. Like, and I had to say that, like, if you go to these international red light districts, you'll see these elderly, less uh these little lecherous old men wandering around, got their, gassed up because they getting these little young pretty tenderonis, but that's because they paying for it. It's transactional. Okay, guys, if you ask me stupid questions, put in a. I'm not going to answer it flat out. Like, don't expect me to answer stupid ass questions. If you want to stupid ass questions, get stupid ass answers, and that's what you about to get, a stupid ass answer, which is your answer to the fucking questions you just asked me. If you're gonna ask me something stupid that has nothing to do with the topic, then drop it in the super chat or drop me a super sticker or drop me a cash app. If you're not dropping me a super sticker or a super chat or a cash app, I'm not answering your fucking question. Moonlit says, then like, subscribe, share, and buy this man a coffee, or hit the bottom right of your screen for super chat. Please share with similar minds and show support for Just A Contrarian. Moonlit says, be patient with responses. He will respond when he's ready. Orville Rittenbacher. Yeah, that's it. Or Orville. Yeah, Orville Rittenbacher. That's his name. And his son went on to run the company afterwards. He looked like a younger version of his father. Oh, hey Agatha, what's up? Got the usual bunch. I got Agatha, I got Asia, I got Moonlit. So guys, can you stop saying bad words? Can you suck my dick? How about that? How's that for bad words? Who are you, Captain America? Unless your name is Steve Rogers, you're not telling me not what to say out my mouth, bitch. Go somewhere else. Fuck you think this is? I'm Gen X, motherfucker. Moonlit, you better tell him. Our generation, look, this this is what Gen. Oh, you should have timed him out. I wanted to roast him a little bit more. But guys, I'm gonna warn you right now. Generation X, our mantra, Generation X's mantra is basically fuck your generation. That's our mantra. Fuck your generation. We're gonna say gay and retarded because if you acting gay and retarded, we're gonna call you out on it. Fuck your soft and entitled generation. Go suck a 9-inch pipe. He said they understand. Keep going now. All right, thanks. So anyway, so is people are delusional on both sexes, right? So if you look like Orville Rittenbacher or you look like Boss Hogg, sorry, that might be too out of date for you. What's a fat old white man from this generation? Um, I don't know, but if you're a fat old white man or you look like Orville Rittenbacher and you thinking you're gonna find love with a 24-year-old woman, think again. You paying for it, and I have nothing against transactional relationships, but you are paying for it. So don't be sitting there complaining, "Oh, this girl's a gold digger." Motherfucker, you almost 100. Like you were there wrestling with Abraham Lincoln, and you worrying about a, some 24-year-old woman falling in love with you. You need to be you need to be up on your art membership. That's what you need to be doing. You need to get your gold membership to art so you can get your $5 matinee. That's what you need to be doing. You need to you need to make sure there's padding on your car. Don't be driving after it gets dark because you can't fucking see without your high beams on, blinding everyone else. All right, don't be worrying about finding love. If you ain't find love by now, it's too fucking late. You should have found that back. You should have you should have found that back before slavery ended. That's when you should have found love. Dylan says, "Do you think that internet and social media is making women hate men and vice versa?" Yeah, I'm gonna touch on that, Dylan. Thank you. Pause. But yeah, I'm gonna touch on that. What internet and the social media is definitely feeding into problems with relationships. Like a lot of people are socially awkward nowadays because they're not having real life interactions. For guys, I'm gonna get on guys for a second, right? Pause. A lot of these guys, dudes, you guys need to go out there and actually attempt to talk with women. And I get it, some of these women are gonna clown you and blah blah blah. But develop the skills. Just develop the skill set of being able to talk with people in real time. It doesn't so the reason I'm saying is it's not I'm not expecting you to score. I'm just expecting you to get the practice. Then once you have the skill set, you take it somewhere else, right? Then you go overseas or you go into a community where there's more traditional type of women here in America, if places you can find it, which would be outside of major metropolitan areas and places like the Midwest or the South, or out in those so-called flyover states. So let me tell you something right now. Those so-called flyover states have a lot of good women there, but people won't know because they don't go there to those places. You can go to North Dakota or Wyoming or Montana or Utah and find good women. But if you stuck trying to find women in New York City, Miami, LA, DC, prepare to be disappointed. He said they Alex says they're intimidated by his Gen Z. Well, I mean, so this falls on women too. Like a lot of women will come online and try to show off for other women, saying, "We don't need these guys talking to us. Don't talk to us. That's that's cringe." Like simply, so some of these women are retarded, especially these Gen Z women, because it's not the older women saying it; it is the younger women saying stuff like, "Well, you know, guys that come up to them is cringe." Like having a conversation, attempting to have a conversation with someone that's not cringe. Now, some people can be cringe, but that doesn't mean just the very act of having a conversation with a person is cringe. It shows some of these women are fucking dumb, or they won't, or they're not saying the quiet parts out loud, which is if they find you undesirable, they don't want to talk with you. Now, if that's the case, that's fine. Just say you're not interested. But to sit there and clown on these guys, and then you're mad now that they aren't approaching whatsoever. Like guys will go, like I'll be with my homeboy, and we'll go to the bars and stuff, and we're not approaching women. Well, he might. I'm not. One, I'm married. Two, even if I weren't married, I still wouldn't approach them because I'm not interested in any women in Baltimore, particularly of a certain group. um, but social media makes things worse because now like you got people on social media trying to outdo each other, saying it's all women's fault or it's all men's fault and all this other dumb stuff. Look, guys want guys want women, and usually women want men. I'm talking, if you're on the rainbow, the same thing applies. Just but if I, I think is if you spend too much time on social media, it'll give you a distorted view of reality. It's not so. It's not just that social media messes things up. Is if you spend too much time in that space. If you like, if guys spend too much time in that red pill space, they're gonna start walking around saying red pill stuff in real life as if it's something like, and it comes off very awkward, like or weird. Like you should like I don't care how many Kevin Samuels things you've watched, and that's my man, that's my boy right there. That's my boy. Rest in peace to Kevin. Or these other manosphere red pill people, they may make good talking points, but that doesn't mean those are things you should actually bring up in actual conversations when you're talking to people in real time. Like asking women what do you bring to the table is stupid as shit. That's just dumb. But there's literally men saying dumb shit like that because they spend too much time online. Dylan says the same women that say that stuff but are waiting for a man to come elevate them. Yeah. One says, but Dylan, we don't need validation. Women don't either. The younger ones are making it seem so. You see, I'm talking about younger ones mainly and not all. CLR Fish and said, what's up? What's going on? So, man, so yeah. But like I said, here, West, I like, I have my biases and people can call me out on these biases because, I like people to keep me honest. But yeah, for the most part, I don't, you have to do a lot of digging to find women with a traditional marriage mindset here. Even the ones who want to be married, like, it's still, it may not be worth it. And then, like, depending on the state, the laws here sometimes make it undesirable to marry, even if you do find a good one. Agus says, I always wonder why do men like us young women and not their age. What's good from Brusky from Miami? It's been a while. What's up, man? Yeah, it has been a while. So let me touch on what Agatha said first before I go on with my little diatribe. Agatha is evolutionary. Like you have to understand before modern civilization, we didn't look. So I'm gonna try to put it tastefully. So before we had modern civilization, the way to know whether someone was healthy was their attractiveness. Attractiveness was a key sign to physical health, right? So this is why people by and large desire attractive mates. Attractiveness is a sign of mo- all things considered equal of good health, which is was important before the modern era. Also, men preferred younger women for two reasons back then as well. One was it was um, someone who was younger was more likely to be fertile, and someone who was younger was more likely to have a lesser body count. That's why men have always traditionally preferred younger women. Not to mention, psych when when you look at the psychology of relationships, um, age gap relationships are actually healthier than relationships where the couples are of the same age. Age so age gap relationships where a man is typically several years older than the woman is are actually healthier relationships from a psychological perspective. The women look for the men who are older for both maturity and resources. The men look to the younger women for you know being fertile, less body count, and more agreeable. So one of the things I keep telling one of my friends who's had a lot of trouble in getting into long-term relationships is that he keeps dating middle-aged women. I'm like, dude, stop dating middle-aged women. Which when I say middle age, I mean 35 and over. Like they've hit the wall and they're going to have a lot of baggage with them. I was like, you need to keep it 35, under 35, because a lot of those women like our age, they're just not dateable anymore. Like Jerry Seinfeld said, they're undateable, undateable. But the problem is some of these women are still very attractive, which wasn't the case before the modern era. Like women who hit the wall back then usually weren't very attractive anymore. Nowadays they're still attractive, but they still, are over the ages of 35. For them having a kid, it will be geriatric pregnancy. Um, and they typically been run through by a lot of partners because they want to ride the carousel from, the time, you know, they leave high school until they're ready to settle down in their late 30s to early 40s, and they've been run through. Like by the time they've established their career and all that, now they want a man. That's not how it works. They need to be finding a man when they're still of college years, not long time afterwards. And then they keep saying, "Oh, there's no good men out here." No, there were good men. You didn't settle down with them, or you passed them up because they were too corny for you. They were too nerdy. So Amon says off topic. The kid DJ Daniels that became an honorary Secret Service guy. He literally just said he put his girlfriend in juvenile detention if she touches him. I laughed so effing hard, but it was cute. Well, kudos to him for even having a girlfriend at 13. So I didn't. I tried, but I didn't. Dylan says, and I think younger women don't know any better. It's easier to create an image about yourself. This a more mature woman would see right through. No, they're being taught this by by their mothers, their aunties, and all that sort of stuff. They're taught they're taught to go to college so they won't need a man, instead of how more traditional minded women are that go to college to find a man. These women are taught to go to college so they don't need a man, and then they walk around with their intellectual dicks in their hands, wondering why they can't get a mate. Hamon says, Dylan, consider their influence maybe they come from broken single parent homes, mature faster than boys, and only want to impress other girls. Boys do the same, but don't fully mature until 25. Boys and men and women both mature. Well, if we talk about cognitive development, like pretty much everyone reaches cognitive maturity at the age of 25. But the difference is men typically shouldn't marry until at least 30 or 35, because even modern women still want traditional outcomes, which is insane. But the fact that even the, the fact that modern women still want traditional outcomes means, these guys have to wait later to get married because it takes longer to get established nowadays than it did 50 years ago. 50 years ago, you know, you come out of high school, you already had a career. You could buy like a little starter home on your little factory job. Um, and I hear, because boomers always go, well, when I was your age, motherfucker, when you was my age, like a house was like a nickel. Okay, you had cars with pterodactyls in them. You started them up with your bare feet. So don't. But no, but seriously, like things were so much cheaper back then. And besides that, boomers had all the advantages from which they took away from their children and grandchildren. All the social, all the social and economic advantages they came into in the late 40s and 50s, um, even in the early 60s, they stripped away from the from the younger generations, and then with no sense of irony, asked, why can't you do the things we did at your age? Because you took away those very things. But yeah, I mean, back then you could become an adult earlier because one, it was expected of you, and two, the tools were there. People had people were typically already married by the time they were 21, had a kid, already had a home, because most of them they started their adult life right after high school. Nowadays, no. I mean, if you're not going to college, you need some sort of um, vocational trade, or something. And again, most guys don't come into financial independence somewhere between their late 40s to early 50s, which means it makes sense they shouldn't even think about settling down until they're at least 30, 35. Not to mention having a kid. If you make the mistake of either having a kid, um, not going on to get a post secondary education either in college or a trade school or the military, or you get caught up in the legal system, you're fucked. I'm gonna say, yeah, I meant cognitive. He's LOL. Flintstone boomers. He said they had a lot of leeway. They did. They definitely, the baby boomer generation definitely did. I don't begrudge them their advantages. What I disdain is the fact that they took them away from the younger generations, and then, um, out of a sense of self entitlement, and then had the nerve to blame those very generations for not achieving what they did. That's my problem. Not the fact they had not the fact that they had those benefits, but that they took them away from the previous generations, and then had the audacity to say, "Why can't you guys do what we did?" So, I guess it's like she said, like the she says, like the live guys share, subscribe, and super chat. Thank you, Agatha. Melissa, exactly. They took that from us, yet blamed us for quote unquote being too spoiled and quote unquote not knowing how good we got it. We do a same a bit to the new generations, but much more intelligently. No, I see some dumb Gen X. I'm not going to even hold you. There are some dumb Gen X out there that really say some dumb shit, and I call them out on it too. I'm like, dude, you sound just as stupid as the boomers. Seriously, like as much as I ride Gen Z on stuff, I don't make the mistake of using the same shit that boomers said of us or the silent generation said of us. Oh, they don't want to work anymore. Oh, they're lazy and all that sort of stuff. I will say though that Gen Z, by almost every generation, including millennials, are considered soft and entitled. That is going to be a stigma for their generation. Gen X, we will keep the stigma of being of seeming to be uh, cynical and cynical and unambitious. That's our stigma for Gen X. Boomers will be considered selfish and social, selfish if not downright sociopathic. So, um, in any case, that's kind of off topic, but the point I want to get to is a lot of these women of the West are unmarriageable, and like I said with the conversation with my friend, just because someone will screw you doesn't mean that makes you a desirable mate. Like guys will screw anything. To get back to my original point, that doesn't mean they want to marry you, and women don't understand that there's this distinction but that guys make. Like like to understand the distinction, just from all you have to do is remember the old game of um marry fucking kill, right? Who would you marry? Who would you screw? Who would you off? Unalive, right? Guys make that distinction, even if they don't vocally say so, or even if they're not conscious of it themselves. There are men have categories of women. You have playtime girls, and you have girls that you would date and or marry. Those are separate. Those are separate classes of people. Just because you are attractive, or just because you have a willing twat, does not mean he will get into a relationship, much less marry you. And the sooner women realize that, the better. People were so mad at Kevin because he said the things that guys usually say amongst each other to women, and they hated him for it, for letting them know the truth. You are average at best, and you are expecting exceptional men. That's not realistic. If you hit the wall, you should not be expecting an above average man to want you. Will some of them screw you? Yeah, but that doesn't mean he's gonna be in a relationship with you. He's just gonna consider you a fun time girl if you're attractive, even though you hit the wall. And I'm sorry, once you pass 35, you are past your prime sexually. Women get mad because they can't. They Another distinction they can't make is your your value in the sexual marketplace versus your value in as far as your intrinsic worth. Those are not the same things. Your sexual marketplace value is simply saying, hey, this is how desirable men consider you in terms of relationships and marriage and potential marriage. It has nothing to do with your intrinsic worth. It's just the same as like, and on some level they notice, they just don't want to make that distinction themselves because it will destroy their sense of entitlement and self I don't know, self-importance. But it's the same like with financial worth and intrinsic worth. Your financial worth isn't your intrinsic worth. You may be worth $2 billion, but you may be a piece of shit. And I'm not saying that of any particular billionaire, so don't take it that way. But yeah, you could be a billionaire, but personally, you could be a piece of shit, which is why Kevin made the distinction between high value men and someone who's merely high income. Merely being high income is a prerequisite for being a high value man, but that doesn't make you high value yourself if you are an utter piece of crap, right? Um, Likewise, you may be someone who is a blue collar guy, but you may be an upstanding person. You may not, you may not be high value just because you don't reach that net worth, but that doesn't take away from your intrinsic value because you may be an upstanding person in society. So just as financial your financial net worth doesn't equal your intrinsic worth, neither does your sexual marketplace value equal your intrinsic value. And I think most women know that. They just didn't want to draw that distinction because again, it knocks down it knocks down their 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 self deception. What's up, Kat? Aga says hello, Kat. Aga says, don't you think our generation is smarter and more intelligent? No. If you're talking about Generation Z, no. Actually, you guys are the opposite. I've explained this before, but so in psychometry, um, which is a subfield of psychology, this that studies studies cognitive ability and standardized testing. So in the history of testing uh, intelligence, particularly general intelligence, which is a general intelligence, or what's called the G score in behavioral statistics, is a very quantifiable, measurable behavioral psychological trait measuring cognitive ability. And IQ tests are tap into that. They measure that directly. In the 100 years of intelligence testing through IQ tests, there was a thing called the Flynn effect by James R. Flynn. You can, and if people want to know more about him, there's plenty of him stuff about him on YouTube. He's still alive, um, and he's done some TED talks. So the phenomenon that he discovered, which is named after him, the Flynn effect, showed that each generation started to do better on IQ tests than the previous generation. And there was the question at first: does that mean each generation is getting uh, um, you know, smarter than the previous? No, absolutely not, because that would mean what? That all our ancestors were absolute morons? No, there are people from the past who are still brighter than people today. I would gather that people like Plato, who was a polymath, Leonardo da Vinci, who's a polymath, um, the Aristotle, and many other people I can list from antiquity. These people were brilliant. What the IQ tests were showing was that each generation was doing better on the IQ test because there was more emphasis in education on teaching people abstract reasoning, which is what the IQ test measure. What what that G score is measuring is people's ability to do abstract reasoning. And as there's been more emphasis in education and society on abstract reasoning, each generation was doing better on the IQ test, so they had to renormalize the test for each generation so that they can renormalize it back to 100 Otherwise, each generation would seem to be like geniuses if they took the IQ test of the past. But what started happening around the early 2000s and now even more so is that the Flynn effect has been reversing. So around the late 90s, early 2000s, it started to plateau or reach a asymptote, a point of diminishing returns. And then what happened is it actually started reversing where it was falling off. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the newer generations are dumber, but it does mean that they're worse off in doing abstract reasoning than previous generations, and it kind of shows in the way people think today. The way the younger generation talks shows that they have less ability to think abstractly. Like when you hear them talk about politics and social issues and things like that. Not to mention, a lot of these colleges coddle mediocre students, give them safe spaces and trigger warnings for stuff they don't want to hear. College is not supposed to be a safe space. It's supposed to be where your beliefs are challenged, not where they're not where they're incubated. So yeah, the newer the younger generations are definitely not smarter than the previous generations. If anything, they're about the same, but they are definitely worse off in abstract reasoning than previous generations. So that means because of the reverse Flynn effect, I will actually be doing better on today's IQ test than the ones of my generation, which it should be the opposite. I should be doing less well on the newer standardized testing test than of my generation. So no. See what is the let me take this off my charger. Guys, I might put this down so I can eat a Cliff Bar if you don't mind. See if I can. Let me switch the filter, by the way. See how much I missed. I didn't miss much. I can't. I don't know if Asia's still here, but your avatar looks different. Asia. I mean, I know you changed it, but well, I don't know. Well, maybe I'll just eat my Cliff Bar afterwards. I don't know. But yeah, so like I said, average women are still delusional, even after there's been Kevin Samuels and a bunch of other manosphere people brought this up for the past 4 years. It's still going on where mediocre women are thinking they deserve exceptional men. It's like, no, if you're over the hill, if you're overweight, if you're unattractive, if you are if you have a horrible personality, if you live in a place not amenable to men to normal men, all these sorts of things, you shouldn't be expecting, you know, the prince to come save you. Sorry, the prince ain't coming to Detroit. Like maybe in coming to America, you know, he'll come to Queens. But for the most part, the prince is not coming to save you from Baltimore, Philadelphia, Detroit, Indianapolis. Yes, average women are delusional, Catherine. Average women who expect above average men are delusional. Clearly so. That's what this whole topic is about. Average average women still haven't learned their lessons. Again, people who are over the hill, overweight, horrible personalities, live in places not amenable to where men might want to travel, uh, and so forth. They're delusional. what people need to realize, both men and women, is that there are trade-offs. You do not get everything for free. Every person should be saving themselves, not expecting anyone else to come to their rescue. Well, it's not about saving or rescuing. That's sort of I get what you're saying. What I'm saying is a lot of so men have to be more pragmatic than women because we're used to getting turned down. We're used to having to hunt for mates. But women in the West are entitled. So this is what I'm saying. Women of the West still think too highly of themselves. They don't realize there are trade offs. There are always trade offs. If you're not being willing to accept that there are trade offs, is delusional. Was classed as an above average male in your opinion? Um, so I'm trying not to use high value man because that's because that has so many um, it comes with a lot of uh, a lot of social baggage, but expecting either high value men or men of uh, higher social status, but the woman is average. Women's 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 wealth in the sexual marketplace is their beauty. Men's uh, men's wealth in the social marketplace is their resources. And when you have women who would be judged a 5 by most men thinking they deserve a guy who's like a 9 or a 10, it's delusional. Like a woman who's, you know, bigger than a man of her own height or over the hill or has an unattractive personality, expecting a guy who's 6'5", 6 pack, 6 figures, 12-inch schlong, you know, driving a Bugatti. No, it's delusional. Uh, Moon says, Agatha, I think Gen X is special in the sense that we had a giant technological boom that made a high separation from all other generations. I don't believe we're better. I believe we grew up better. I don't think Gen X is exceptional. So although I'm Gen X, I mean I have my biases for because I'm Gen X, but I don't think we're unique. In some regards we're unique. I think we're the last um, generation to grow up in that to grow up like in a pre-digital uh, era, right? So we were the first generation to switch from analog to digital, right? And the younger Gen X um, made it a smoother transition than maybe older Gen X. But there was that, and then there was this sort of social cynicism that Generation X had, because before we were called Generation X, which didn't that didn't happen until like the 90s. They didn't know what to call us. They were just calling us the lost generation. But um, th- what makes them higher value? Again, we're kind of going cat like it's like a million stuff on YouTube about this. Like the the high value man thing is a concept that came out of the 80s, even though people attribute it to Kevin Samuels. He literally himself said, this is something, from the 80s. Higher value, one, is of high income. Two, they are deemed high value by men of other high value. Three, you know, they have certain careers and occupations which are of high social prestige and can be something that you can see on a LinkedIn profile, right? Four is that they you know they set a certain standard for other men to follow. Um, that's not exactly the way Kevin Kevin phrased it, but I'm just putting it in my own terms. Um, but yeah, it generally of higher income, of higher social status, they're deemed high value by other men of high value status. They have prestigious occupations, and you know other people look up to them. So that's basically it. Like, but if you want like real specifics, like I said, there's like a probably like like 100 YouTube videos you can watch on that. Uh, Melissa, I said Gen X. Cass says, I put a man's character, what's in his heart and his authenticity way above that superficial stuff. Well, that's part of well, that's part of how value is a person's character. But again, Kevin criticized this long time ago as well. So again, we're treading the same water that Kevin has answered 4 years ago. Someone's character is not making them high value alone. If they are living on the street, who cares what your character is if you're living on the street? It's not all inflated ego. Again, women are unrealistic. Men have to be more pragmatic, which is why a lot of Western women are delusional because you guys are entitled and don't realize like that that doesn't matter. The perfect explanation of this is on in The Dark Knight when he says, "It's not what I am on the inside; it's what I do that defines me." It doesn't matter what's in your heart and what your character is if you're living on the street, if you're a bum, like so you high value the a prerequisite a necessary condition of higher value men is that they make high income. That is like that is a prerequisite that can't be overlooked. It's like saying it's like talking about a gifted person. A necessary condition of being gifted is being of high IQ. Like you can't get around that because it's a necessary condition of being gifted. Is that you have to have a high IQ. But that's again, it's not a sufficient condition, but it's a necessary condition. Like there's other conditions involved that would define someone as being gifted, but high IQ is one of those conditions that has to be met. What's up? What's up, Mrs. Contrarian? I was wondering if you would still stop by. Catherine says action speaks louder than the words. Yeah, so that's exactly what I meant. Like when I was talking about like on the Dark Knight trilogy, where uh, you know Rachel, Bruce Wayne's love interest in Batman Begins, and then the Dark Knight, and she's telling Bruce because he's at this time he's still pretending to be like a like a self like a self-important playboy, but at this time he's just playing like that was Tony Stark's actual personality that he had to get over. But Bruce Wayne pretends to be what Tony Stark actually is. But anyway, the point is like when he's pretending to be like the shallow playboy, and Rachel says Bruce, it's not. He's like because at a point he kind of breaks. He almost forgets his persona because Bruce Wayne just his persona. That's not his actual personality. So he almost breaks his persona with her and was like, Rachel, I am more than this. I am, you know, he said, there is more to me. And she was like, Bruce, it's not what you are on the inside, it's what you do that defines you. And that's when she realizes that Bruce Wayne is Batman because when he saves her, then he dives off the off the rooftop. Like, well, before he dies off the rooftop, she was like, but she asked him, something, and he's like, it's not who I am on the inside, it's what I do that defines me. She's like, Bruce. But anyway, off of Batman, I can turn anything into a Batman and Star Wars conversation. You guys know I can. uh, but Moon says, I think our generation X is extremely different than the newer ones, if that makes sense. I get if all generations think that about themselves. I think they're easier to influence. Well, yeah, all generations more or less think they're unique. And in a certain sense, every generation is unique, which is what kind of defines those generations is they have a different each generation probably has their own pathos, maybe. Um, like I said, Generation X was known for seemingly being of low ambition and cynical. So, but we were the kids who grew up in the Cold War, the Great Recession of the '80s. Um, a lot of things happen. Also, I don't want to get into that because that's just a whole other conversation, like that, not really germane to this topic. But yeah, each generation is unique. Where, but like I said, going back to what Agla said, no, the younger generations aren't smarter than the older generations. And Generation X isn't necessarily better than the other generations. I think because we are quite cynical, we can laugh at all the other generations, though. Moon says off topic. Mrs. Moon's brother is in the ER. I just heard car accident. I'll have to go. I'll check in. Stay smart and safe, y'all. All right. Um, tell her hi. Hope her brother is okay. Sorry to hear that. Cass says it blows me away in both men and women how their words and actions don't match up. That is a deal breaker for me. That's that's a fair point. Mola says hi. Hopes all is good. Take this heat and rain away from Thailand, please. She said it comes down to authenticity. And sorry to hear about your brother-in-law. Um, Authenticity, like, yes and no. That was a big thing amongst Generation X, is this authenticity. I think that can be overplayed, and it may not even be necessarily um, germane to the topic of, because we're talking about sexual marketplace value. So authenticity really isn't directly communicable to that. Um, Agnes says, my take on Gen Z men, they are very immature. They get on my nerves when I look at my grandfather. He is strong, very ambitious, and love family. You're welcome, Moonlit. Well, yes and no. Again, look at what they have to pick from, Agatha. Like the women, those guys have to pick from. I give it up to some of these, to the smarter Gen Z guys who are like saying, forget these girls. We just gonna come here and hang out, play games, go to work, and have and just not deal with these women. Like I don't blame them. I won't go so far to say as that they should be MGTOW, anything like that. MGTOW stands for men going their own way. I think a lot of those guys in the MGTOW movement are incels, so I don't advocate for that. But I do think that younger guys should be putting off get getting into relationships with shallow and silly women. So they're telling them they should take them out on $500 dinner dates for their first date. Like no, like no, bitch. That's a plane ticket. It's like both the older women and younger women are delusional. in the West. Like I said, it's a problem with the westernized mindset. It's not like there's generational differences and there's racial differences, but overall, it's a Western mindset that is putting off a lot of men. I think. I think I need to eat this Cliff Bar, guys. Sorry. Hold on here. Put this down. See if I can get this to stand. Good. Mrs. Contrarian, I'm eating another Cliff Bar. My chocolate chip. Mm. I need the protein. And I'll just buy some new ones. So I don't like to keep them in the bug out bag too long. I like to keep a constant rotation of Cliff Bars. And I still want to get some MREs, meals ready to eat for you who aren't don't know that nomenclature. Yes, I have water, but I need something to eat. So this is why men of means are going overseas. Moon said, "Bro, I'll catch up soon. I gotta balance my bro. Send the ER. Holla later." Yeah, definitely. He said, "Mods, I handle it." Yeah, go. Yeah, definitely bounce, bro. Make sure your brother-in-law is cool. I hope he's all right. And the other point I brought up earlier was I don't think any particular race of women are more shallow than the others. I think it's more a question of their their social background and upbringing. So I love y'all. Stay real. I catch up. Yeah, no problem, man. Hope everything is good. Let me let us know later. What I hate about eating snacks is it makes me hungrier. Does that? I don't know if that happens to anyone else, but sometimes when I eat a snack, it just makes me want to eat a meal. For some people, it quenches their hunger. For me, it just makes me hungry. Like I eat this, I'm like, all right, now I need some food. You know how fat people would be like, they'll eat a. I'm like the opposite. You know how like fat people will eat a meal, they be like, all right, now I need something sweet. I'm the opposite. I'll eat a snack and be like, all right, now I need a meal. So I'm like the opposite fat boy. Like so the regular fat boys, they'll eat their meal, start rubbing their stomach like, all right, now I need something sweet. I'll eat a snack. You'd be like, all right, now I need a meal. Anyway, off of that. So yes. So again, this is why I think Western women are delusional, is that unrealistic expectations and not accepting that there's going to be trade-offs for the things that they want. You can have some things, but you can't have everything. Okay, that's number one. Number two is the more you have of one thing, the less you might have of another. Like a signal to noise ratio, right? So you can pursue higher education at the cost at the cost of getting into a relationship early on when you're younger, but that's gonna come at the cost of you being of it being more difficult for you to get into a good relationship later on, because those good guys are going to be snatched by those nubile women. They're not coming after the 30, 40, 50 year old crowd, right? And that's not to say that those women aren't pretty, because like I said, living in contemporary society, middle-aged women can be exceptionally beautiful. Toni Braxton, she was thirst trapping on Instagram last year. I remember I was showing my friend, and I was like, "Yo, she looks better than some of these Gen Z women," and she really did. Toni Braxton looked great, but no one's gonna be beating down her door to marry her. They'll be beating down her door to clap them cheeks. Definitely. They'll definitely want to break down. They definitely want to, break in Toni Braxton's back. But at her age, at Halle Berry's age, Halle is still very attractive. They're not. People aren't trying to marry her. Jennifer Lopez. Jennifer Lopez has captured the infinity gauntlet of wedding rings. So she's done. She's done. She finally got Ben Affleck. Affleck. Let me stop. But she finally got Ben. And Kevin predicted this before he died. He said, you know, look at Ben and J Lo. He said Ben is like the typical higher status man. They typically prefer to, not all, but many higher value men typically want to marry women of their own ethnic group to have children that resemble them. Um, I think for black men that's a little bit different because any women we have, like we have children with, our children are going to resemble us. Strong genes. But no, seriously, higher status men tend to want to date within their own groups because they typically want to carry on a legacy with children that resemble them. And he said that was why he said that's why he knew back then when Ben and Jennifer were dating that he was going to break up with her and end up marrying and having kids by someone else, which he did. He got with Jennifer Garner or whatever. They both played each other, Daredevil and Elektra, in that awful movie back in 2003, 2004. Then they ended up getting married after dating from meeting on that set. But then they broke up, and he went back to Jennifer after he's had his kids and married her, and that didn't last because she's probably the modern day Marilyn Monroe, where she's very beautiful, very sought after, but probably not very good in relationships. Yes, but anyone is asking in the background, I do have quite a number of things in the background. Yes, that is a rice hat. Okay, I don't know what you call them, but at the anime convention they call them ninja hats. Clearly, they're not just for ninjas, right? But I have a rice hat, and yes, that is a bow or fighting staff as well as my bug out bag with my fitted cap on top of it that I would wear when I would take that backpack out for bugging out or camping or hiking or whatever. And there's another bag right next to it that has a bunch of like actual school stuff in it, which is the trick bag. Because one school bag looks like a regular school bag, but it's actually my bug out bag, but it's tactical, but it's not a typical bug out bag with all the camo and molly webbing on it because I don't want my bug out bag to look like paramilitary looking. Kind of defeats the purpose if you try to move in silence. Whereas the other bag is just a regular school bag, so, but you don't know which is which. Anyway, um, So I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I do want to cover all these things because I realize a lot of people haven't watched the stuff that I've watched or read the stuff that I've read to understand within the psychology of relationships what is causing people to despair. Um, a lot of people aren't dating anymore or getting married or having kids. Matter of fact, in the West, marriage, well, in the East as well, marriage is damn near a privilege of people of higher classes now. People of average means can't even afford it anymore. What's up, Juice Dope? So no, not yet. He has to have kids yet, but so you're seeing a lot less people getting married because one, they can't afford it, and two, it's harder to get into relationships. Three, this is my bias here, but I don't really think it's worth a lot of people getting married in the West because of our legal system. The legal system is set up to screw men. Like I mentioned my home state, for instance. My home state is Maryland. In Maryland, a woman can have, like, say, a man's wife can have a kid by another man, and even after paternity test proves that it's not the husband's child, he's still financially responsible for that child in this state because it was still because this kid was still born within the confines of their marriage, even though the kid is a bastard, a illegitimate child. Sorry. So guys are getting screwed, and then and then like I said, family law with child support that screw you. So there's some guys on child support that can't even travel because until they pay off that child support, they can't get a passport. It happened to a former boss and friend of mine. He can't travel because he was still paying off child support. He tried to challenge it. I even tried to help him because like he had me deliver the the I think the court date or whatever to the woman, and he said, if she didn't if she didn't respond to it, then he could, he can contest it in court to get the child support dropped. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. So again, I don't know if he's paid it off or not, but he's screwed. So you got a lot of people stuck here and can't travel because they got child support. So they're screwed. Yeah, it's a Batman fidget spinner. Juice says marriage and kids is for the rich. It's not for the rich, but it's becoming almost that bad that marriage and kids is for the rich. I'm not rich by any means, but I was still married, and I traveled overseas to get married. I traveled 8,500 miles to get away from putrid Baltimore because I would never want to marry anyone here. Well, I let me qualify that. I would marry someone here in Baltimore as long as they weren't of my own group. I'm sad to say that, but I wouldn't date anyone of my own group. I I think women in Baltimore are the most unattractive women in the country, following Philadelphia, where I also lived once, and places like Detroit and Cleveland and Indianapolis and St. Louis, places like that. And the reason I say that is because a lot of them are ratchet, a lot of them are unattractive, a lot of them a lot of them have body counts higher than a special forces unit. Um, and what comes along with high body counts: trauma, psychological disorders, STDs, and the the inability to be able to pair bond with a man. And a lot of these younger women have higher body counts than the men of their own age. Hendrik says, "What place in the U.S. do you think have the best looking women?" So again, I'm not saying American women aren't attractive. So I mean, we know the places where typically you find some of the best looking women in the U.S.: Miami, L.A., New York City, um, even I was gonna say D.C., but nah. Um, there's a lot of diverse women in D.C., but not the best looking. Juice Soap says, "Okay, but if women have high body counts, who are these? Who are all these guys they're sleeping with?" That's actually a good question, and that was another point that many people, including Kevin Samuels, brought up. They're all dating the same men. They're all dating the same small pool of men because when you look at the, again, if you look at them, if you look at what's going on, a lot of these women have higher body counts than the men of their own age, which means they're all shipping the same men. Hendrik says Atlanta. Um, I guess so. Atlanta, Houston area, and most of the major metropolitan areas are going to have probably a lot of beautiful women. But but I was keeping it simple. Like generally, Miami, LA, and New York City are known for having the most attractive women within the country, generally speaking. But yeah, most of the major metropolitan areas um, are where you're gonna find attractive women. So that would include other places like Chicago, Atlanta, Houston, Boston, San Francisco. But best looking women doesn't equal wifeable women. Again, we're making a distinction between girls who are good for playtime and those who are marriage suitable. Those are not the same. Some can be, but not necessarily so. Agnes says, "What about the younger women in your city? Do they have a lot of body counts?" Baltimore? Yeah, yes, absolutely so. Even a long time ago, like even like 20 years ago, my cousin was like, he was like, dude, he's like some of these. He said, a lot of some of these women in the city. He was like, dude, they got like um body counts, in the in the hundreds. I'm like, ill, what? In the hundreds? He's like, man, it's common. I was like, that doesn't make it. That is just because it's common doesn't mean that that's acceptable. I mean, he's learned his lesson. He's a bona fide passport bro. That dude, my cousin is out of the country like every other month, usually to Colombia, DR, or Cuba, wherever. He's all about Latinas. I keep trying to get him to go to Asia, but he keeps saying he doesn't have enough time off from work to do so. But I'm like, dude, you keep talking about how cheap it is in DR. I said that has nothing to do with how cheap it'll be in Thailand, the Philippines. And I was like, unlike Colombia, I was like, dude, you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay for private security to make sure you don't get drugged or something crazy. I you you have to pay. You have to pay me to go to Colombia to like. I'm not going to narco land for women, but that's a whole different topic. Juice says if their same age male counterparts aren't getting any. Yeah, like I said, they're all screwing the same small pool of men that they find desirable. They're all fucking the same Pookies and Ray Rays. and these men are all knocking up the same women. So have you tried finding God fearing women with lower body counts? What? I don't know about you, Jews, though, but usually the freakiest women were the ones in the church. Ask ask anyone. The preacher's daughter was usually the biggest freak. Mrs. Contrarian says hundreds. Yeah, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding, Mahal. Like, you know what I'm talking about, right? Robbie. I'm talking about Robbie. Mahal. He told me that long time ago. He was like, some of these women in Baltimore have like body counts in the hundreds. And I'm not even joking. I thought he was kidding. He was serious. It's nasty. And Baltimore has a high incidence of STIs. Not coincidentally, Baltimore used to be joked about for being the syphilis capital of the country. It makes sense. Justo says it's not possible for every woman out there to be a 304. I don't I don't get your point. You're not that. Don't make a straw man of what I'm saying. I didn't say every woman. And you came into a point where I was already talking about this for like an hour. I said what I said originally is you have to do some digging to find good women, and I'm not, and that's like for a lot of men, it's not worth it. Men of higher means don't have to sit there and dig through the rubble to find a diamond in the rough, whereas they can just simply travel to a place where there's better women generally, and generally those women are outside of Western society. Women in traditional cultures are still marriage minded, like my wife. I met her outside of the Western world. I literally traveled over 8,500 miles away to be with her, to meet her, just to get away from anyone in Baltimore or anyone else around in the Northeast. Can you find good ones? Yeah, but like I said, is you a lot of guys are gonna be logistical. Like, is it worth that? If I can, like, is it worth sifting through all of this rubble when I can just fly off somewhere better, and just there are generally better women in this place than this place? And that was another thing I was pointing out, is that some women are being delusional, thinking they're gonna find a good man when they live in a bad area. Like, if you live in Detroit, if for both men and women, if you live in an undesirable place, in an undesirable location, you have to get outside of that location to find better partners. If you live in Detroit, you have to get out of Detroit. If you live in Philadelphia, you have to get out of Philadelphia. If you live in Baltimore, you have to get out of Baltimore. I'm not saying you have to travel 8,500 miles away like I did. I'm just saying you need to go get out of that country, out of your current location. And like I said, some of the places in America where you can find more traditional women is going to be outside of those major metropolitan areas where you find the most beautiful women. Again, ladies and gentlemen, there are trade-offs. You may not be finding nines and tens in some of these places that are outside of major metropolitan centers, but you'll find better quality people. So it might be better to start looking in these so-called flyover states. You may not, you might find a good person in Montana, in South Dakota, in Nebraska, in Utah, Colorado, in Tennessee. But again, if you live in one of those major metropolitan areas, and this is something, a conversation I had with a friend several days ago, and I told him, I was like, your mistake is you keep trying to find wifey material in the DC area. I said a lot of the women in the DC area are not wifey material. They're all about their careers. They're all so-called independent women. Those independent women don't know how to be wives. They don't know how to be long-term partners. He was like, yeah, I understand, but he's like, I love the women in this such and such place. I'm like, look, it's always gonna be trade-offs. I was like, you can find beautiful women and these career-minded women in DC, but a lot of them aren't traditional. And and when I say traditional, again, I know that's an ambiguous term. I mean it in the sense of being marriage-minded. So, what makes a good wife material? Well, beautiful, feminine, agreeable, low body count. X is in what context do other are other women better outside? Well, I just explained it. Like they're more marriage minded, they're more agreeable, they're more feminine. A lot of women, especially in the Northeast, are very masculine, especially in the New York City area, in Baltimore, in Philly, in New Jersey, and Boston. Those are very those women are very manly. Yeah, son. I mean, chicks walking around talking about, yeah, bro. Nah, I don't want. I want some women going around calling people bro and telling dudes to suck their D. Like, uh-uh. Juice says, but anyone can lie about their body count. Yes, but if they're willing to lie, again, that shows their character flaw, right? You're kind of getting it still feeds into what I'm talking about. If they're willing to lie about it, one, it shows that they already know that body count is an issue, and two, it shows that they're not even willing to be honest with you. So, and three, the thing is, even if they lie about it or not, people with a high body count are typically unable to successfully pair bond with someone long term. And like I said, this is why. Okay, I don't know what the Stepford wives are, but so this is why pimps know when a woman knows when a hoe is done. I'm sorry to have to put it in these terms, but I'm gonna put it bluntly. A pimp knows when a woman is done walking the streets. Like she's at a certain amount of tricks, she's done. She's burnt out. The reason being, again, these higher body counts comes trauma, psychological disorders, infections, and the inability to pair bond with a partner. So even if they lie about their body count, it will still show in their behavior. Sort of pimp psychology for you guys. Just want to know, like I said, this is when a pimp know a hoe is done walking the streets. So, not that I was one. So I want to clear that. I don't want anyone clipping this and saying, but I was never a pimp. I've met some, and I've seen how they operate. Like pimps have a very good grasp of common sense psychology. But yes, what makes someone wifey material? Beauty, femininity, agreeableness or submissiveness, low body count. Someone who's wifey material makes a man feel good about themselves because beauty doesn't last. Okay. Women's currency in a sexual marketplace value is their beauty, but that doesn't last, which is why they have to do it when they're younger. But what keeps the man are those other qualities, their femininity, their agreeableness, the fact that they haven't given their womb to 100 other men, especially women who've already had children by another man. They're definitely by default of lower sexual marketplace value than other women because you've given the most sacred thing you can give to a man to someone else. Like, so what else can you do for another man? Cook him up, cook him a steak? Great, I can cook my own steak. You know, like when a guy, so when these guys online are saying what does the woman bring to the table, he's basically saying, what can you do for me that that you know Mary Jane Rottencrotch down the street can't do for me? Sorry, that's a army term, or that's a military term. Mary Jane Rottencrotch. Sorry. But yeah, I mean that's what they're asking. Again, like I said half an hour ago, guys in real life should not be going on dates asking women on their dates, what do you bring to the table? Because that's really stupid. Like that's online talk. People need to separate online talk from conversational talk. Okay, but in essence, when guys are saying, what does a woman bring to the table, like what can you do for me that you haven't that you haven't done for other men, or that other women can't do for me? The best thing is, provide him a child, um, make him a home, submit to him. And I don't mean like a slave, which is what a lot of modern women say. I'm trying to be his slave. Submit means just be agreeable. Juso says some people should just be single at this point. Yeah, some people should be. Not everyone's meant to be with someone. That's just facts. Not everyone's meant to be with someone. However, 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 humans did evolve to pair bond. We are one of those species that evolved for long-term pair bonding, and we find the most satisfaction in our lives when we have pair bonded with someone. I mean, and I'm not coming at this from a religious perspective, because a lot of people will come at this from a religious perspective. I'm coming at you from just a excuse me, a common sense point of view. Humans evolved to pair bond. Agnes says, when you say agreeable, do you mean a woman should agree to whatever a man says? No, that's not what agreeable means. Agreeable means agreeable means, like I said, it's another way of saying submissive without saying submissive. But submit in I don't like saying submit either, because it's usually because women take it wrongly, because the problem is, no matter what word is used for it, women will reject to it, because women who are not agreeable or submissive don't want to be it. So they're going to disagree with it. Agreeable does not mean agreeing with whatever the man says. Submissive doesn't mean being a slave. Submit is in the when guys usually say submit, they're using it in the religious context of submit. Juice Dopes is absolutely right. He says not being combative. Like some men, like for instance, like some women, modern women, and again, I'm taking this out of a racial context, but a lot of modern women will say, well, he needs to conquer me, or I need a man to you know to make me submit, or you know he 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 should fight to make me happy, and all sort of stuff. Like, look, after 8 to 12 hour, well, maybe more, 8, 15, however hours he works a day, doing whatever he has to do, he's not trying to come home and conquer you. Like, the fuck. Only thing he wants to conquer when he come home is probably his video games. Like, and I don't even play video games, but no one's trying to, you know, guys don't want that trauma, like that drama when they come home. Like, they want peace. Catherine says, in other words, obey the man. In a certain sense, obey. But again, I don't want to use that word because it it gives the impression that again that the woman is just supposed to do whatever the guy says. That's not what submissive means. And again, the fact that Western women don't understand what that term means is why they don't have that quality. This is the main quality that traditional women in the East have that they lack. It's not doing whatever the man says. It's not just simply saying, okay, hun. It's not saying, it's being a, so I think the best way to define it is to describe examples, right? The guy comes home from work. His wife already has food, has already fixed food. And she was like, hey babe, I cooked dinner. Um, I don't know if you wanted chicken adobo for dinner or if you wanted caldereta. So I made both. I made both chicken adobo and beef caldereta. When she comes home, when he comes home, he opens the door. She's sitting there smiling at him. He might have been going through hell that day. He might have had a good day. He might have had a bad day. Either way, when he comes home, he can set that aside for the moment. He comes home, his wife smells good. She's smiling at him. The kitchen has the aroma of food. There's already a plate set, or the food is currently being fixed as he as he arrives. He has a say he has a PS5. She hands him his controller, lets him chill out. He eats, plays his games for a little bit, talks with her, blows her back out, goes to sleep. Then it might be the weekend, and she's thinking, oh, we just gonna stay in, chill. And he was like, nah, babe, I'm gonna take you out. She didn't ask to be taken out, to be taken out. He decided I'm gonna take her out because she deserves it. Now let's reverse this and go back to the West. I'm gonna put this in context of a black relate couple because this is what I know best. So some people might get offended. Oh well. Tony comes home. He opens the door. His wife gives him a side eye like, this nigga. And he's like, hey babe, what's up? Nine. Uh, will dinner be ready soon? Why don't you Why don't you order some food? I'm tired. Okay. So he orders them, some Chinese, some Thai food or something, right? Sitting there eating food. Before you go to bed, can you fix such and such and such and such and such and such? Sure, babe. Um, I just wanted to play my video game. You and them goddamn video games. Mind you, I don't even play video games, but I've seen this played out. Can you fix what I asked you first before you go play your little games? All right. So does that, tries to play his games. You gonna play that all night? I just want to get to the I just want to get to the the saving point for the game. Then I'll be done. You always playing them games like a goddamn kid. You know, he goes in the bed. He's ready to break. He's ready to break that headboard. And I'm tired. And don't be pulling on my hair. I just I just had it done. She puts on her little fucking hair bonnet. She got on a fucking hair bonnet and and circles around her eyes and shit, ready for you to blow her back out or whatever. But she's looking like Aunt Jemima. So you're like, can you give me a little head start here? Yeah, I don't feel like doing all that. Weekend comes around. Hey, you gonna take me somewhere? We don't go anywhere anymore. How about we go to the movies? That's so basic. All you know is the movies. Why can't you take me somewhere nice? Lathandra said her man took her out to the bistro and they went dancing and had wine. I'm sorry, it's late. I'm tripping. But you guys you see the difference? I'm exaggerating the differences here just to make it really salient for you guys. That's the difference. So there you go. That's what guys are tired of. Then again, and then he finally gets divorced from Vaginisma. Tony decides. Well, no. So Vaginisma says like Tony. She falls out of love with Tony. So Vaginisma wants to take half of his earnings. That man built himself a nice six high 6 figure net worth. She's taken the house, took the kids, and she got full custody of the kids because her lawyer advised her to say that he was you know abusive, so that she could get full custody, because that's what these lawyers tell them to say. And possibly finds out one of the kids ain't even his. He still got to pay for it. So he's living in some little shanty. He's on child support, so he can't even travel now if he wants to. Women calling him a scrub because he lives in this little shanty. Meanwhile, his wife is living in a luxurious house he built for them. Juso says, like I said, some people should just be single. Not everyone is fit to live up to the standards society placed on us. Yes and no. Again, there's trade-offs. The problem is, again, average people need to be with average people. A lot of women, guys are more pragmatic. An average man knows he shouldn't expect to get an exceptional woman. He can want what he wants, but he knows that's probably not likely. Average women, on the other hand, think just because they have a pussy that they can still get exceptional men. They might get their backs blown out by a few exceptional men, but by and large, those men are not going to marry them. They'll keep them as a they'll keep them as a side piece, maybe. And that's again only if they're very attractive. But the thing is, with average women, they're not that attractive. That's kind of what makes them average in the first place. um, but again, in the sexual marketplace, what gives certain women an edge, even if they are average, uh, beauty wise, is being feminine and agreeable and having a low body count. This is why you'll sometimes see high value men with women who are not nines and tens. The nines and A lot of men don't want nines and tens for wives because they're shallow. Not all of them, but a lot of them. What comes with having a 9 and 10 is you got to deal with, you know, their pretty privilege. Like, there's nothing wrong with a 9 and 10 who's also very high in femininity, very high in being agreeable and inspirational. But what happens is a lot of guys will settle for a woman who may be only a 5 or a 6, or an adjustable six. But they're very feminine, they're very agreeable, they inspire these guys to do better. And it's hard to find that in the younger generations. In older generations, you can find that, but a lot of guys aren't willing to date middle-aged women because they want to build a family. They can't build a family with someone who's already going to be facing geriatric pregnancy or have a lot of emotional baggage from the relationships they've been in since they've been dating since their teens. So as far as standard society place on us, there are social norms. That doesn't mean you have to go by social norms. Again, one of the biggest things to go against social norm in the West is age gap relationships, which is silly because age gap relationships are actually healthier relationships than than relationships where the couples are of the same age. This is known in psychology of relationships. Not to mention, it's been something borne out through our evolutionary history as well. But that is against social norm in the West, and guys will get shamed for being with younger women, right? They're called creeps and all sorts of things. And the reason being is that because older women don't want to have to compete with more beautiful younger women, and younger men who don't have resources don't want to compete with these older men who have resources and more maturity than them. You see, they're called Drake. Well, I'm not gonna get into all of that, but yeah, that the term they use for Drake will apply to them, and it's crazy because you'll be if she's an adult, if the guy decides he wants to date someone 21 and he's 45, who cares? Karen says, so a woman who is above the age of 36 years is classed as a geriatric mother. I don't class 36 as being middle age. Well, it is in the sexual marketplace. It is because after 35, after 35, it's usually considered a geriatric pregnancy. I never heard of the term geriatric mother, but it's called a geriatric pregnancy because they are past they are past their most sexually reproductive years, which is why they go down in the that's why their sexual value drastically goes down after they hit that wall. This is why we say they hit the wall. Is the the wall is undefeatable. Like people may not like it, but it's there. Like certain social facts aren't meant to be pretty. Like I can lie like some relationship coaches lie to women and tell them a lot of things, but it doesn't make it true. What's a man's sexual reproductive prime? Um, if if you mean in terms of when he's most likely to get someone pregnant, like in their same as a woman, like in their early to mid 20s. But if you're talking about their prime as far as in the sexual marketplace value, usually middle-aged men, because it's typically nowadays the men don't really come of financial security until they're early to somewhere between their mid 40s to early 50s. That's when a guy has usually reached a certain financial security that he can take care of a family. As far as you mean he being able to knock a woman up, then typically in their early to mid 20s. So, um, really anytime for a guy, like, um, we're pretty much we pretty much can knock the walls in until we come of senior years, like in the 60s. I mean, you know, Al Pacino and Robert De Niro both got women pregnant in their 80s. I mean, yeah, I think they were both like about 80. They both had children 2 years ago. So guys can pretty much keep knocking up women throughout their lives, but their prime, is again going to be in their 20s. But if you're talking about their sexual marketplace value in their middle years, whereas the women's prime, as far as their sexual marketplace value, is in their early 20s. This is the time where they should be trying to find long-term partners if they want to find one. Now, it's not every woman needs to find a long-term partner. That's completely fine. The problem is they think that they can use their most reproductive years. Did I show this? Make sure okay. The problem is they spend their most the years when they have the most nubile, pursuing an education and making a company rich instead of building their own future. Like I married my wife in our prime. Um, but again, I'm not saying, and again, I'm not saying that a woman over the age of 35 can't have pregnancy because of, luckily, because of conventional medicine, women can have women can have healthy babies at a later age. But this comes out of scientific progress because 100 years ago, no, that 100 years ago, women usually past their prime, 30, 35 and over, weren't having many, typically weren't having a lot of kids. And when they did, those kids tended to have more problems. Um, there's more, um, you know, there's more genetic mutations, um, for people who have children of an older age. There's more random genetic mutations, which means there can be more likeliness of um, different sorts of illnesses and medical conditions. And this is where the whole term of geriatric pregnancy came from. Things like that, like the considerations that middle-aged women had to consider when having children at that age. It's more likelihood of the babies being unhealthy, of a woman having more complications during birth, um, stuff like that. And again, I'm not discouraging anyone. I'm not saying after 35 you can't have kids. That's not what I'm saying here. My point is that up contemporary until uh, until like recent times, um, geriatric pregnancy was a thing. Not so much so now, but a lot of people still use the term, right? But the the bigger point is that women past their prime shouldn't be expecting exceptional results. It's unrealistic. Okay, they if if they can find a man, that's great, but they shouldn't be thinking that, oh, he has to be 6 foot, he needs a six pack, he needs six figures. Take what you can get at your age.
Be realistic, because they are trade-offs. The trade-offs is, now that you are lower in the sexual marketplace value, you have to accept you have to accept that the things that once you want are above, are, out of out of your out of your league. The things you want are above your pay grade. you're E4 expecting you're an E4 expecting to get the prestige of an E10. Okay, sorry, put that in military terms, but yeah, but no, you know, if you if you are just a if you're just a private, you shouldn't be expected to be treated like a first sergeant, right? So it's just all about being realistic and accepting their trade-offs. Can women of older age and of less beauty still find men? Absolutely. If, and only if, they are really willing to uh, date within their scope. Once they try to go beyond their scope, it's going to be very unrealistic. Like a lot of women who, uh, another problem related to that is that women who were very pretty when they were younger, once they get older and not so beautiful anymore, still expect to be treated the way they were when they were younger. They still expect to have that pretty privilege they had when they were 21. It's like, no, you're now 51. You're wrinkled, you're overweight, you got 2 kids. Guys aren't checking for you like that. It's like, yes, I know you were the most beautiful woman on your block back when you was 21. Every guy wanted you, but that was 30 years ago. You're not the same person. You don't have that pretty privilege anymore. And and again, I've made similar critiques of men too. Like, these guys in their 60s and 70s. They have this. They have some disposable income, so they do go travel. Now their children are grown, they're divorced, they go looking for like true love overseas, and they are surprised that the only relationships they find are transactional, because at their age, that's pretty much all they can get. No one, again, like I said an hour and a half ago, um, some 21-year-old woman is not looking for someone who looks like Orville Rittenbacher, or looks like I can't think of who's a famous fat person. Um, I don't know, or looks like Peter Griffin. Sorry, I couldn't think of a real person. At least I can't think of anyone today. All my examples of people from long time ago that younger people aren't gonna know who I'm talking about. Like, people who aren't Gen X don't know who Porky or Boss Hog is, or so I had to use a fictional example. But again, and you probably don't even know who Orville Rittenbacher is either. But look, uh, but again, it's about being realistic and knowing that there are trade-offs. Even the people who do have the pretty privilege, um, there's still trade-offs for them too. A lot of the so on that so on the converse, so the women who are young and very attractive, they might not attract the most suitable mates, because there's a lot of people who may want to get with them just because of their beauty, and that's it. And it's up to these women to be more discriminating at that age, and say, I'm not going to just ride the dick carousel. I'm going to find a man who actually wants to be with me. So Um, I guess that's all to say about that. Unless I don't know, did I miss? I might have missed some comments here. I'm sure. Oh yeah, I did miss some messages. Sorry. Mm, da, 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 da. Hold on, let me check. All right. Yeah, that's my filter. Captain says, going on your views, I'll be better off staying single. I know my worth and value. That's what a lot of those women say. And again, it's a matter. Look, I think there's a built-in level of self-deception. A little bit of self-deception is healthy, but it's self-deception nonetheless. If someone, a woman who's in their 50s, has already been married, has children, expecting Mr. Right after you're over that and you're already halfway through the century, it's not realistic. That's It just means, hey, you have to be take what you can get. If you can find a man who's friendly and loyal, hey, there you go. But but a lot of delusional women say, I know my worth and value. You really don't, because your value, you may know your intrinsic value, but that's not what we're talking about. I've already made this I've already made this clear an hour ago. A lot of people aren't making a distinction. That's before I think you came on here, though, Kat. A lot of people are not separating intrinsic value from sexual marketplace value. Those are two different things. No, your sexual marketplace isn't your intrinsic value. Those are two different things. Your sexual marketplace value is your worth, your sexual worth to a man who is looking for long-term relationships or marriage. That is sexual marketplace value. And again, just because someone will break your back in does not make you higher in sexual marketplace value. Because guys will fuck anything, as I stated, an hour and a half ago as well. Guy, like I said, a guy in the desert will fuck a sheep. That doesn't mean that he wants to marry sheep. That just means that's the only thing about that's the only thing he could find. So man, so lamb chops it is. But in any case, intrinsic value and sexual marketplace value are not the same. And I think that's pretty obvious, but women conflate the two because they don't want to deal with the obvious that they are lower in sexual marketplace value now than they were when they were much younger and before they had children and before so Juice dope. I'm not. He says, "Well, f a sheep." Hang on now. It sounds facetious, but I'm being legit. Like, where you think the term came from? Like, the whole term, he'll f a sheep, because people actually have done it. That refers to bestiality, and bestiality is referred to in the diagnostic, uh, um, the DSM, the not diagnostic statistical manual for mental disorders, under sexual deviancies. They have things like bestiality and things like that. Again, it's a deviancy, but it exists nonetheless, which shows just because someone will do it doesn't mean that that is an actual preference for normal men. That's my point. That's sort of my point, that men will f anything, but just because men will f anything doesn't mean that that's a preference amongst normal-minded men. That's my point. The sexual marketplace value is what men, what rational men or rational women would prefer in a long-term partner or spouse. Jesus is over Rittenbacher. He was he started the pop. company where they made like popcorn. So if you ever eaten Orville Rittenbacher popcorn, the logo is the picture of the founder of that company. He's a looks like an old slender looking white man with bifocals. Um, so if you ever had microwave popcorn and like that's what like the brand name is the Orville Rittenbacher popcorn. uh, HYK says, "Well, I haven't been on your live in a while. What's the topic?" It is women of the West still haven't learned their lessons. These I remember from the political live streams from a while ago. Yeah. He said, no, that just makes men shallow. No, again, you're trying to shame men. That's not going to work. You're not going to shame men. That's not going to work, Cat. It's not going to work. Men, you can't shame men for what they evolutionary want. Men want nubile women because nubile women wasn't a surety that they can have children with them. Until modern times, the way to ensure that a woman was fertile was her beauty and her youth. Beauty in both men and women through our evolutionary history was a indicator of good health. This is why attractiveness has been important in both men and women. Through cross cultural research, men have desired women typically big eyes, high cheekbones, oval face, small chin, hourglass figure. Women have desired men tall, slender, high cheekbones, and a strong jawline. That's across different cultures. And one of the key indicators of attractiveness was bilateral symmetry of the face. And women, I mean, men preferred women in their youth because that was a key indicator they were still fertile. Not to mention they had a lower body count. As a matter of fact, they often preferred women who were virgins because that ensured that they didn't have that one they were free of diseases and two that they didn't have children from other men. So he said, "Can you see my comments? I think I'm banned." No, I can see. Uh, Topic is average men still think they deserve more. Yep. So I have to go take care of. Thanks, Kat, for the conversation and and for the topic. To Juice Up says, "But contrarian, what about love? Marrying for love is a flawed idea." So in the history of relationships, some people have said that romantic marriages didn't exist until modern times. That's actually false. Romantic marriages have been around since ancient times. They have been rare because they rarely work out. Nowadays, when people are typically of better economic means than in the past, so people can marry for love. But too often it is the case that some people will, because of love, will put on blinders to other things that are also important in relationships. HY cases, I think that you need to find someone you are friends with and develop a relationship, not just have sex and get married. Uh, I won't say that you're friends with, but someone, for men, you want someone who's feminine, someone who's beautiful, someone who inspires you. Women want a guy that can lead them, they can take care of them, they can protect them. Um, but I don't believe in the whole thing of my spouse should be my best friend. No, no, they shouldn't. You should not be confiding all your emotions to your to your wife. If you have a outpouring of emotions you need to share that with a therapist, or keep that shit bottled up and do some Muay Thai. You don't need to be overly sharing. too many younger men overshare their emotions, and women will use that against you, or they'll just think you're a punk. Either way, you shouldn't be oversharing and trying to make your wife your best friend. You need homeboys, and she needs homegirls. So, but yeah, I mean, I I'm glad that Kat came into the conversation because she kind of was the motivation for this topic. And like I said, she was in her. I think she failed to to appreciate that what I was saying is intrinsic value and sexual marketplace value aren't the same thing. Too many times, women past their primes conflate their intrinsic value with their sexual marketplace value because again, many of them were very attractive in the younger years, and now it knocks them off their pedestal, realizing they don't longer have that pretty privilege. So they conflate their sexual marketplace value with their intrinsic value, but those are distinct things. It's just like a person's um, financial value is not their intrinsic value. A person can be worth $1 billion, but that doesn't mean intrinsically that they are a, you know, an upstanding person. They could be a piece of shit. Conversely, someone may just be a blue collar worker, make a 40 to 50,000 a year, but they're one of the best persons you've ever met. Um, so intrinsic value and financial value or sexual marketplace value, these are all separate concepts. I mean, if I were really put to the wall, I would say intrinsic value doesn't even exist, but that's a whole different topic. Extrinsic value versus intrinsic value, internal versus external. Like that can be a subject for another day. But leaving that aside, let's just say for the nuts that intrinsic value exists. That is a separate thing from sexual marketplace value, which is your worth to people of the opposite sex in terms of long-term relationships and marriage. Women, as they get older, their sexual marketplace value goes down, and for a lot of them that's a huge blow to their egos, and they can't and so they try to rationalize it either by shaming men who want what they want, or they they create a lot of self-deception for themselves and still try to say that they are highest sexual marketplace value, but they just can't find the men who are worth them. So it's being delusional. Once they hit that 35 and plus, that 35 and older, they're lower in the sexual marketplace value because, simply put, younger women are prettier. On average, all things being equal, younger women are prettier than older women. Duh. Like that. Wow. Like that's not like that wasn't something that's been known for the past 200,000 years. Younger women are prettier than older women. Duh. Also, um, what else? Women with children are less desirable to men. Women who have children from other men are less desirable to men looking for long-term relationships. Duh. Like that's not, again, it's just common sense. And I'm sorry. And if you are and once you are over 50, no guy is looking at you like that. You're 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 in your grandma years. Like you're literally at 50, you're literally in your grandma years. And like I said, like we had a private conversation about this several days ago, and I'm like, look, there's no guy in their early 20s talking about I sure would like me some a woman in her 50s. No, unless they have a gilf fetish, and again, that would be a fetish because most men of that age are not pursuing women who would be already considered elderly in past generations. In past generations, a woman in their 50s will already be considered elderly. It's only been in the past 50 plus years that a woman in their 50s would still be seen as relatively beautiful, through, I mean, because we have better nutrition now. People are more mindful of exercise. We have there's cosmetic procedures people can undergo, and there's medicine that can keep you, you know, can restore you to a nice body size. But back in the early 1900s, that no, like in the early 1900s, someone in their 50s would look grandma-ish. Like now, you might have people like Tony Braxton thirst trapping in their 50s on IG. J Lo thirst trapping. You said J Lo's almost 50. No, she is 50, bro. J Lo is 50. I'm in my late 40s. J Lo is much older than me, bro. She's already in her 50s. That kind of goes to my point. Because she's so pretty, people don't realize she's in her 50s. J Lo's in her 50s. She might be like, I don't know, 50, 51, 52, but she's in, when she did Selena, that was a long damn time ago, bro. Like Selena came out in 96, and she was already in her 20s then when she did the movie Selena. And before she was in the movie Selena, she was a she was one of the fly girls on In Living Color in the early 90s. She had got married back then, by the way, at the age of 19 or 20 was her first marriage, when she was a fly girl on In Living Color. So, by the way, are you guys enjoying the Chopin? I hope I don't get demonetized for this music, because I didn't mean for it to be so loud. Um, Matter of fact, I'm about to go pretty in a few minutes anyway, so let me tone down this music. Might eat another Cliff Bar. Yeah, I didn't mean for that music to be so loud, but I'm hope people enjoyed Chopin. Chopin is one of my favorite composers. I love all the Baroque era composers. The Baroque era is a period in European history, um, and in a period of classical European music. A lot of the Baroque composers are like people like Chopin, Beethoven, um, Mozart, Strauss, all those sort of folks. I don't think Dvorak can, counts as the Baroque, but I'd normally lump him in with the. I don't know if he's actually in the Baroque era, but the music he composed is similar to the Baroque era music, so I normally throw him in with the Baroque era composers. But Dvorak is, yeah, all of it. They're dope. So anyway, I'm about to end this unless anyone else had any other comments, conversations. But again, I uh, love Kat for being it like for being able to kind of help us with this and see. And she's not even one of the worst ones. She's one of the better ones, guys. There are women who are completely delusional. So when I'm talking about people who are completely delusional, don't think I'm talking about Kat. She's pretty mild. Okay, there are women way more delusional out there, way more delusional. And I mean, you can see them. You can see them online. Like they post on social media all the time. So I come at this from a different perspective. There's one, my red pill perspective, but there's two, also the fact that I can back up my red pill perspective with actual like behavioral research. So not to mention with just like some sort of bit of common sense reasoning. Like with this sort of topic, we don't really need to get into complex
philosophical reasoning, which is called the philosopher's fallacy, the philosophy fallacy. We can just do common sense reasoning here and point out some behavioral research facts and psychology of relationships. So again, this is why I named this topic average women still think they deserve more. Like I said, if for women who are past their prime, they shouldn't expect exceptional results. Old women who are older, who have who have children or who are less attractive, can still find mates as long as they are being reasonable. But these women thinking they're gonna hold out. First of all, if if you are already past 35 or you have children, you should not be holding out for any guy. You should be giving it away. This is a point that Kevin Samuels made. Like, ain't no guy, ain't no, there's no guy gonna be waiting for someone who's like 40, got 3 kids, gonna be waiting 3 months for her to kick it out. Like, you better throw it to him. I do so says my 2 cents is dating shouldn't boil down to a person's sexual marketplace value. Things like money, height, body size. It does take away people's individual differences and makes them seem like objects. No, it's being pragmatic, brother. Like, what I'm saying is, with it's not. This is again, you're making the same mistake Kat made when she's saying, "Well, this just means guys are being shallow." No, it's not. When we're talking again, do you recall all the qualities that I mentioned? Beauty was only one of them. Remember, I said beauty, femininity, agreeableness, low body count, right? Those aren't those don't reduce someone to just superficial things. To want a woman who's feminine and agreeable and inspirational and have a low body count, that's not superficial. And I gave that example like 30 minutes ago between like an agreeable wife and a disagreeable wife. Does that does that seem shallow to want to come home to to someone who's going to make you good, feel good when you come home, like, as opposed to someone who wants to fight with you as soon as you step in the door? That matters. I think because maybe you haven't been in a long term relationship, you don't get that yet. And they say so here's another behavioral research fact for you. Um, they say opposites attract. No, they don't. People who who are like each other, people who resemble each other attract. Opposites may attract temporarily for the wrong reasons, usually for like superficial sexual reasons, but that doesn't last. Long-term relationships are typically among people who are of traditional values and share those same values. The problem is conventional women want traditional men. That doesn't mesh. Traditional men deserve traditional women, and vice versa. But you have a bunch of modern women thinking they deserve traditional men. It, there's trade-offs. There's nothing wrong with being a modern woman, but you shouldn't expect a traditional man. Vice versa. A a modern guy should not expect the traditional woman. Okay, so it's not just about money, height, body size, and all that. That's what women say, stuff like that. For them, a guy's sex. So here's the thing: in a sexual marketplace value, again, this is what we're talking about as far as people of the opposite sex looking for someone for a long-term partner or spouse. A guy's currency in a sexual marketplace value are his resources. in the sexual marketplace value for women, their major currency is their beauty. But those aren't the only things, right? For a guy, it's not just his resources, but also his masculinity, his ability to be able to lead and guide, which is important not as a husband, but also as a father and as a member of this community. So it's not a shallow thing. It's just being pragmatic. So there are there are certain values or virtues that lead to success, just like there are vices that lead to ruin. Does that make sense? Uh, Tony's coffee. Hi, by the way. He says, Adam and Eve in paradise, yet it still was not enough for the woman. She had to eat the forbidden fruit. LOL. Yeah, I'm not gonna go into this in a religious context. Like, one of the things you'll see in a lot of red pill spaces is a lot of people will have the same conversation, but they usually come at you from a religious perspective. I'm coming at you from just a common sense perspective. I keep this devoid of religion because I'm going to assume that everyone has different religious convictions, and other faiths, and I think it weakens the argument if you come at it from just a religious perspective. I think if you can just come at it from a common sense perspective, it doesn't matter what person's religious convictions are. They can just see they'll be able to see it just by the strength of the reason alone. Juso says, but what about soulmates and finding a twin flame relation? Again, that's dude. That's how do I put that nicely? Um, this is modern romance bullshit. I'm sorry, I just had to be blunt. This, this is stuff people have been brainwashed. Too many, all that simp R&B from the 80s and 90s, all these romance novels, all these romantic comedies, soulmates. No, no. If you go to if if you get married, one of the things you should definitely do is get marriage counseling, like premarital counseling. Um, okay, there's no such thing as soulmates. That is a that that is some bullshit born out of women's longings for this. You know, again, women being unrealistic. Guys have to be pragmatic. The whole soulmates and twin flame bullshit is something women uh, conjured up. That is bullshit. If a woman to you is attractive, she makes she treats you well, she inspires you, she's agreeable to you. You can see as the mother of your children, you want to have a legacy. You want to carry on a legacy through her. There you go. How would you define something as as vacuous as a soulmate? Like, it's purely subjective. Twin flame, that's so subjective, and that's clearly something that's clearly a feminine concept. That is not something men that's not that is not something masculine men talk about. I want my soulmate. No, that's yeah, in romantic comedy, sure, but real life is not romantic comedies. This is why so many people get into bad relationships, because they're all thinking through the veil of it gotta be romantic love. Blah. Look, love by itself a, is not a good indicator of a good relationship. It should be part of it, but by itself, no. Just a lot of people make bad choices because they're led by their emotions. Men need to be led by reason and not just their emotions. We have to be pragmatic because the women aren't going to be. They're led by their emotions. We have to be Vulcans. They can be Romulans. We need to be Vulcans. Sorry to be nerdy again. Vulcans are rational, logical. Romulans are emotional and passionate. So, as good, yes, you should want love in your relationship, but that's not enough. And again, how someone defines a soulmate would be very subjective. So it's not even a useful concept in terms of the psychology of relationships. I've already described, for this 2.5 hours, um, things that would make a healthy relationship. Like I said, despite it being against the social norms in the West, it is a known fact in the psychology that age gap relationships are healthier relationships. Women typically are happy in relationships where the man is quite a bit older because of his maturity and his ability to provide resources for her and their future children. Men like the younger women because of their beauty and because they're more fertile, so they can have children with them. And again, these guys find the women higher in sexual marketplace value who are beautiful and feminine and agreeable and inspirational and have low body counts. The women find these guys higher in the sexual marketplace value, or who are of higher income, who are more masculine, who are leaders, right? You know, and like I said, people like um, Kevin Samuels have described people like high value men, or also Henrys. Henrys is high earning, not rich yet. Justo says, play Michael Jackson butterflies and look deep into her eyes and tell her you are the one that my soul has been longing for. We were meant to be together for eternity. Oh, bro, stop. You're about to make me vomit. I'm sorry. I like the song Butterflies by Michael Jackson, by the way. So don't think I'm getting down on the song. I love the song. But that is some, just for that, bro, uh, do some. I'm going to have to ask you to do 10 push ups. Seriously. You're going to have to do 10 push ups after saying that, man. Because no. You got to do 10 push ups. And don't worry, I'm going to do my push ups when I get off too. I'm just gonna eat enough. Probably gonna eat another Cliff Bar. No, 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 no. No, I'm not gonna eat another Cliff Bar. Say that for tomorrow. But nah, you gotta do 10 push-ups for that, man. That's no, no. And don't think I'm not romantic with my wife. I'm not saying you can't be romantic, but all that all that cupcaking you talking about, mm-mm. Nah, son. But I would go, guys. It's late, but I hope if you watch this whole broadcast in its entirety, you get where I'm trying to get. I know I've been all over the place with different points. It's been sort of scattershot, but my original point that average women still think they deserve more is because despite all the things that came out of the manosphere in the past 5 years, including the apex of the manosphere, which was Kevin Samuels, people are still making the same mistakes and still using the same bad talking points online, both men and women, and not but still getting the same tragic results because they failed to listen to everything that's been already put out there. Like, I'm not saying anything that hasn't been said before other than being able to back it up with behavioral research factoids. That's the only difference than maybe what you might have heard on other streams or in other long form videos and stuff like in other red pill content, is that, simply that I can back up my views with, behavioral research and you know a little bit of analysis. But none of this stuff is new. Okay. um, Average women still think they deserve more, and by the very fact that they are average means they don't deserve more. Average gets average. Right? Think you can want what you want, but you shouldn't expect it. Like, you can want to win the lottery, but you shouldn't expect it. Right? Like, you can play the lottery, you can play the Mega Millions, to, and hope you're gonna hit that $300 million, however it is worth right now. But you shouldn't expect to get it because there's a 300 million and one odds of winning. Right? So it's all about um, it's all about being pragmatic or rational about your desires versus your expectations. You can want A person can want what they want, but that doesn't mean they should expect it. A woman who's a five, maybe even a six, can want the the guy who's like worth $7 million, 6'3", you know, abs cut up. Well, mine are, but uh, um, drives a drives a Lamborghini, lives in Malibu. He, he's a great person. He's also very erudite. Um, he's a great, he's everything. They can want that, but should they expect it? No, they shouldn't expect it. But guys, I'm out. I'm gonna do my push-ups. You guys do yours. Um, if anyone has any other like questions or comments, leave it in the comment section out, and I'll get to it, because I know there's a lot of stuff I won't be able to get to, or some people will be watching this broadcast on replay and probably has some thoughts. So, leave it in my comments. If anyone wants to support me, you can do so by signing up for the memberships or sending me a super thanks. Any donation is acceptable, is and highly um, will be um, will be well, and I will thank you for it in advance. Okay. Um, but also give me a like and a share and a subscribe. It helps me grow this platform. Got other stuff going. I speak on this on a related issue in a previous video with a friend where we talk in a car on issues about relationships, traveling, and why certain guys are unrealistic. So again, I'm not just getting on the women. So I know sometimes in these red pill spaces and stuff like that, people think, oh, I'm just getting on the women. I get on the guys too. And if you don't believe me, watch my previous video I have when I talk about 304 mongers considering themselves passport bros. In that video, I'm clearly getting on the guys. So people watching or was watching thinking, oh, I'm just tearing down women, I'm equal opportunity. So I get on the men too. So go ahead and check that out if you like. But I'm out, guys. Thank you for watching. Peace.